This time on Road and Race, we start our rebuild of the braking system.
So, the next steps in preparing Bell for the track is to replace the braking system. This will be over 3 videos, and the first will deal with the master cylinder and brake booster. I've done a video previously on how to check your brakes for problems, which you can have a look at if you'd like to check everything's okay in your car. For those of you who may not know, when you press the brake pedal, it's the brake master cylinder that pushes the brake fluid into the calipers. Inside it are a number of rubber seals, and since this car's over 15 years old, those rubber seals may or may not be any good now. So what I'm going to do is replace the master cylinder, because I'll be taking the car to the track and I'd rather have something that's new than something that's 15 years old. The brake booster, or servo, or power brakes as it's sometimes called, is simply a device that assists the brake pedal when you brake, making driving a lot less effort. No problems with the current one I have, but as we're replacing the master cylinder, it's not really much effort to replace the booster as well, so for peace of mind, we'll replace that as well.
Here's a summary of what we'll be doing. Remove the plastic bits, move the horn, remove the brake fluid reservoir, disconnect brake lines, remove master cylinder, disconnect the brake pedal linkage, remove the brake booster, fill a new booster and master cylinder, bleed the brakes and clutch. These are the tools and parts needed: knife, scissors, socket set, snips, pliers, screwdrivers, turkey baster, plastic cup, plastic bags, flair spanner, breaker bar, new brake master cylinder, and a new brake booster. Lift the bonnet and remove the plastic covering the brake fluid reservoir, master cylinder and booster. It's held on with one bolt and one screw. Then unscrew and remove this plastic piece and unclip the battery cover. We need to move the horn out of the way, so remove the lower nut holding it in place and move it to one side. This is the black tubing that covers the brake pedal linkage. We'll need to remove this, so cut the tubing down the middle with a knife, remove the ties holding it in place at each end and pull it out. Put a towel down to catch any drips, then remove the brake fluid reservoir cap and filter. Using a turkey baster, suck out all the fluid into a cup. My car is an automatic, but if you have a manual car, then there'll be a clutch line connected to the reservoir you'll need to remove too. Unclip the brake fluid sensor, then pull up on the reservoir to remove it. A plastic bag can be used to catch any drips of fluid. We can now start disconnecting the 2 brake lines that connect to the master cylinder. Using a 13mm flair spanner, loosen the nut on the first line, remove from the cylinder and pop a plastic bag over to catch any drips. The nut on the other line just needs loosening. The master cylinder is held on with 2 22mm nuts, one at the top right and one at the bottom left. A breaker bar can make your life easier removing these. The master cylinder will now simply pull straight out. Now we can start removing the brake booster. Pull the vacuum hose out, then unscrew and remove the 2 very long bolts holding it in. They are Torx 45. You will now need to remove the booster from the brake pedal linkage. The pedal linkage nut is here and is 17mm. The locking nut is here and is 19mm. Using both a 17 and 19mm spanner, place them on the 2 nuts as shown and break them loose. Now, it's important not to move the position of the locking nut. Why? Well, I'll explain. The locking nut determines how far the booster screws into the pedal linkage, and thus affects the brake pedal height. If the brake pedal height is altered too much, then the pedal won't touch the brake light switch. And if the switch isn't pressed, then your brake lights will permanently stay on. Holding the nut with the 17mm spanner, unscrew the booster. To remove the booster, you'll need to move the amplifier out of the way. Unscrew the other bolt holding it in, Then remove the 2 screws holding this trim piece in. Avid viewers may already know I removed the factory CD player to save weight a while ago, so if you still have yours, this will need unscrewing too. Next, move the upper brake line behind the booster, then gently lift the booster out. Peel the old gasket off. So here's the new brake booster. It comes with a cap on it we don't need, so using 2 spanners, break it loose and unscrew it. The new booster also comes with a new black tubing. Remove it and make a cut along it. Now, remember I said not to move the position of the locking nut on the original booster? Well, now you'll need to line up both the original and the new booster and rotate the locking nut on the new booster so that it's in the same position as the original. Fitting the new booster is the reverse of the removal process. Simply fit it back onto the car, connect up the pedal linkage to the booster and lock it tight with the locking nut using 2 spanners. Refit the black tubing and secure it with 2 cable ties. Here is the fitted brake booster. Inside it you can see a rod. When fitting the new master cylinder, make sure you insert it so that rod fits inside it. From this point on, refitting everything is simply the reverse of the removal process. Once all back together, the brakes and clutch will need bleeding. In part 2 of this brake rebuild show, we will fit braided steel brake lines so you can hold off bleeding the brakes if you're going to do this too. As the master cylinder is new, it will be full of air. Some people bench bleed the cylinder before fitting, but I didn't need to. Click the screen now to see my guide on how to bleed your brakes. To get all the air out of the master cylinder, follow my guide but increase the number of times you press and release the brake pedal. In the guide, I do this once per bleed valve, but I would suggest increasing this to 8 times per valve to make sure all trapped air is released. Go for a test drive, and if the pedal is spongy, you've not got all the air out and will have to bleed the system again. If you found this video useful, please subscribe and hit the like button, as this helps us make more shows. If you have any questions about this show or suggestions for future shows, please leave a comment. You can follow us on our website, Facebook and Twitter. Click the screen now to watch our next video in this series. Thanks for watching.